So today I want to tell you a story. This happened, well, it must have been pretty much exactly 5 years ago, or a little more than 5 years ago. I tried speed dating and I got laughed at for being a fan of Jason Mraz. This is probably one of my most brutal moments. And I would say that I've never been on a date, even though I did do this speed dating event. But, that doesn't really count because, you pay to attend the event and then these women are forced to be on a date with you. And it's not really a date, you just talk to each person for 5 minutes. So it's not really a date, but yeah. And I didn't even want to do this in the first place. Basically what happened was when I was 29, or actually like as soon as I turned 30, my mom really started to get on my case about finding a wife and getting married and having kids. She's all like, I want to meet my grandbabies before I want to have some grandbabies before I die, and all this, and it's like, I'm sure she should be able to see by, the way my life had been going up to that point, that it's already over for me by the time I was 29, but whatever. I turned 30, my mom, she brings up the idea of this speed dating thing. I keep telling her, no, I'm not doing speed dating. That's not going to work. But, she just keeps going on like, no, you need to get married. You got to find a wife if you're going to be happy. She kept saying something like, you're 30 years old. Maybe you just need a little push. Maybe you just need a little push in the right direction. And it's like, I don't think that's going to help. But anyways, to finally get her off my back about this, I just agreed to do the speed dating thing because it did get to a point where she was talking to, getting on my case every single day about going to this speed dating thing. I just eventually agreed to it. She wore me down and I agreed to it. And I didn't know this at the time, but I guess a lot of speed dating events are actually free, but this one costs money. I didn't pay for it. My mom paid for it. I think it was like $30 or something. It wasn't a lot of money, but the thing is, to this day, more than 5 years later, my mom still makes sure that I remember she paid for this phenomenal gift of speed dating for me. She still reminds me, I paid for you to go on that speed dating thing, anytime she needs something from me. It's so brutal. But anyways, okay, so I show up at this speed dating thing. So it was a speed dating event for people in their 30s, which kind of sucked for me because I had just turned 30. Like I was literally like 30 years and a few days old when this event took place. So I was probably the youngest person there. And I mean, just looking around, most of the women there looked to me like they were closer to 40 than 30. That's not necessarily a deal breaker for me, but yeah, most of the women there, I mean, it was what you would expect to see, the kind of woman you would expect to see at a speed dating event. Because any like moderately attractive woman, for the most part, they don't need to go to a speed dating event. They just use Tinder or just meet someone in person through friends of a friend or whatever, however normal people meet someone. So yeah, the women there weren't that great. It's pretty much what you would expect, but I'm not picky. Like I don't have the highest standards in the world. So, I'm fine with dating an older woman, And even back then, yeah, I was fine. I was fine with it. I understand my situation. So I'm not picky. But either way, the way this thing worked, you would have 5 minutes with each date, and then this woman would come around just like clinking a fork against a glass, which was basically the alarm that 5 minutes had elapsed, and then all the men would get up from their table and move and go sit down at the next table with their next date. And then it would start over again, 5 minutes for each date. Okay, so I think I've talked about this before in one of my other videos, but I already knew going into this, it's kind of like the onus is on men to lead conversation in a date, or basically anytime you're talking to a woman. It's all about, the man has to lead the conversation. So I knew that going in. I knew that I was going to have to kind of lead the conversations. I'm just naturally introverted and super shy and super high inhibition. As you know, I talk about this all the time. So, being the person that leads the conversation does not come naturally for me. So I prepared a list of questions. So what ended up happening is that I'm just like blandly interviewing each of my dates, and oh, it's so brutal. I mean, actually, it's so much worse than what you would think would have happened. Okay, well, let me just get into it. Because I actually only ended up, there was like at least 10 women there, so it was at least, I think the event lasted an hour, maybe an hour and a half, because there was supposed to be some reception type thing after all the dates. But yeah, I actually only ended up going on 2 of the dates before I left. So this is what happened. So I sit down at the table with my first date, and this woman she was definitely older than me, probably one of the older people there. She was late 30s for sure. And right off the bat, it was just a weird, unwelcoming vibe when I sat down at the table. She didn't even say hello. She's just kind of sitting down across from me when I sat down, and she didn't look happy either, which was probably because I was the person at the other end of the table. But I don't know, maybe that's all in my head. But I told her my name, and I asked her for her name. She told me her name, and just by the way she said her name, I could tell she's trying to let me know through the tone of her voice that she is not interested. If you're a sub-5 male and you've ever talked to a woman in your life, you know exactly what I'm talking about when I talk about a woman letting you know through the tone of her voice that she is not interested. So anyways, oh yeah, I remember I actually reached out to shake her hand when I told her my name, and she reacted in like the weirdest way to that. Like she gave me such a weird look. Like shaking hands is a weird thing to do when you introduce yourself. I reach out my hand and she grabbed my hand and said her name, but she was like, okay, and kind of chuckled a little bit. Like really, I reached out my hand. She kind of like stopped for a second and she's like, okay, and then grabbed my hand, and then she told me her name. So it was really odd, because I think shaking hands is normal enough, so I really don't understand. But I don't know, maybe that is a weird thing to do at speed dating. I don't know. Anyways, like I said, I had a prepared list of questions, so I was running through the questions. It was just very basic stuff. But every question I asked this woman, she would just give me short answers, and she just had that tone of voice like I'm beneath her or something. And since she wasn't talking much, and because I kind of expected the way it would go, right? I ask a question, and eventually, maybe not with every question, but I think the woman's going to ask me the same question back, and conversation will flow from there, perhaps. But it just wasn't like that at all. Every question I'm asking, she just gives a 1-word response, just like a short response. And yeah, so I ran out of questions. Like I went through the whole list of my questions that I thought was going to be plenty to cover 5 minutes. I ran out with, after like 2 minutes or something. So at that point, I run out of things to say. I don't know what to say. And this woman is just sitting there, and she also, the whole time, she wasn't making that much eye contact with me, which I'm kind of used to. Even by that point, I was kind of used to it. But yeah, she would like briefly make eye contact just when directly answering one of my questions. But then she'd go back to looking around or look down at her drink. And it was so brutal. So, I ran out of questions early after just like 2 or 3 minutes. So we still had to sit there for another however long to make it up to 5 minutes. So we're sitting there for another 2 or 3 minutes. And I basically just sat there not saying anything. I kind of tried to think of what to say, but then I realized, this woman is not interested. If anything, she doesn't want to talk to me. And by the way, from the very start, this woman just had her phone out on the table the whole time from the moment she sat down. So she was occasionally looking down at it too. I don't know if she had a timer set up for the date or if she's just reading text messages or what. But yeah, eventually when we're just sitting there in silence after I ran out of questions, she just picked her phone up and was just completely ignoring me, like just looking at her phone. She's just on her phone browsing. And it was so brutal because I look around at some of the other tables and yeah, everybody's just having conversation with their date, We were the only date that was going this horribly, where at this point, we're not even on a date with each other. We just happen to be sitting at the same table, That's what it felt like. So it was bad. It was brutal. And I mean, it's just so amazing that this woman wasn't even able to sit still for like 2 minutes in silence. It's one thing to just sit there in silence, not saying anything to me. It's another that she actually pulled her phone out and started just going through her phone. But I don't know. I guess that maybe it makes sense. Just, she's trying to get her mind off the fact that she's sitting across the table from me. Anyways, So the 5 minutes ended, that date ended, the organizer of the event or whatever, she goes around dinging her glass with a fork, telling everybody to get up and go to the next person. So I got up and I said, well, it was nice to meet you, to my date. And no lie, this woman took like 2 full seconds to respond, and she just went like, mm-hmm, you too, as she was putting her phone down. Like she was just like, mm-hmm, you too. And she just sat her phone down, waiting for the next guy to come to the table. I mean, it was so like and the thing is, it's a speed dating event. Like I paid to be here, you know, she had to have paid to be there. So I understand that, you know, she may have seen me and right off the bat known like, okay, I'm not interested in this guy. And that's fine. That's fine. But you don't have to like, there's no reason for her to even try to subtly or just outwardly give me these hints and signals that she's not interested, because that doesn't matter. The date is only 5 minutes. Then all she has to do is, you know, she just doesn't check the box next to my name saying she would be interested in a second date with me, and boom, she never has to see me again. So, you know, it's speed dating. It's 5 minutes. There's no reason for her to be rude like that. So right off the bat, you know, first date went bad. That got me feeling bad. So I was just not in the best mindset. But anyways, I moved to the next table, and the woman there for my second date, she was actually not bad looking. She was probably one of the better looking women at the whole thing, which isn't saying much, but yeah, she wasn't bad looking. She was also definitely older than me, probably late 30s, closer to 40 than 30, but she looked all right. I mean, she was a little bit overweight. She had a cute face. So, you know, she was fine with me. Definitely she was like out of my league, you know, that I remember that. So, well, I don't know. I mean, I kind of remember thinking that I did have a shot. Like she was probably slightly more attractive than me, but I did kind of think, you know, I have a shot here. She's not like a supermodel or anything. She's not a Stacy, but she's all right. And she is older than me, so that probably gives me a bit of an advantage. Although I think I do look, and even back then, I look a bit older than I actually am. But, you know, anyway, so I sat down, I introduced myself, she told me her name, and again, we shook hands, and, you know, this time it was normal. She didn't treat me like I'm a freak of nature for trying to shake her hand. She just shook my hand like it's a totally normal thing to do, which it is. And yeah, just the whole time, she was a lot nicer than the other woman just right from the start. She still kind of depended on me to lead the conversation, but she was being friendly with the way she was answering questions. She did ask some of the questions back to me, so I thought it was going pretty well, honestly. But even so, I mean, I don't know what it was, but just the vibe I was getting is I did not think she seemed to be interested in me romantically. I just kind of felt like, well, she's just a nice woman. She's just being nice, you know? But even that was just, you know, I'm fine with that. That was just very refreshing compared to my experience with the first woman. So yeah, she wasn't really flirtatious. Like I didn't feel like she's flirting with me, but you know, it was a breath of fresh air after the first woman, because she was at least behaving like reasonably to a, you know, the basic societal standard of politeness. Whereas the first woman was just not doing that at all. So I definitely was feeling more comfortable on this second date. And again, even though she was making more conversation than the first woman, I still finished my entire list of questions with some time remaining. Like there was still like 2 minutes remaining. So I guess I just didn't prepare enough questions, but there was a little bit of awkward silence. I remember after I finished my list of questions, and that's when I started to kind of get really nervous because I was actually, you know, kind of attracted to this woman, and I didn't know what to say, and I knew like, okay, now it's getting weird because I have to like continue talking, and she's kind of not making, you know, she's not leading the conversation. So again, it's up to me. I don't know about y'all, but I start to sweat a lot when I get nervous. So I probably was like visibly sweating through my shirt and I probably just looked really nervous in general. But anyways, yeah, so as I'm there, sitting there trying to think of what to say, thankfully this woman that I'm on a speed date with, she actually did ask me a question. Unfortunately, it was not a question that I had prepared for. So she asked me, what kind of music do I like? I never know how to answer that question because truthfully, I do listen to music from a lot of different genres. But really, and I know this is embarrassing, but whatever. These days, and even back then, I mostly listen to K-pop. I don't know why. I know it's cringe. I'm a grown man. I like K-pop. I don't know. I just do, okay? But I obviously was not going to say that on the speed date. I listen to a lot of rap too. These are the thoughts that are going through my head as I'm sitting there. She asked me what kind of music I like. I'm like K-pop, but I can't say that. And then I think, okay, well, I listen to a lot of rap. Mostly '90s, early 2000s rap, some newer stuff too. But it's like I didn't really want to say that either because I look like a very nerdy white guy. So it just gives off a weird impression when I say I listen to rap. Like it's just not what you expect. So I didn't want to say that because I think that's just going to be weird. So I'm just sitting there racking my brain. Like, what do I say? What kind of music do I say I'm into? And I don't know. It was probably only just sitting there for a few seconds, but it felt like, way too long to me. It obviously couldn't have been more than a minute or two because we were timed here. So I guess it was just a few seconds, but yeah. So eventually I just said, I listen to rock. I said I listen to rock. I think that'll be a good answer that a normie, well-adjusted woman will accept, and it matches with what I look like. It just makes sense. So I say I listen to rock music. And this is where things took a turn for the worse. So she immediately perked up when I said that. She was like, "Oh, I love rock." And then she asked me a question that it always just frustrates me more than anything in the world. She asked, "What's your favorite band?" And I don't know about you, but it's any question like this, what's your favorite band? What's your favorite movie? What's your favorite anything? I don't know what it is, but it's like I have an issue with questions like this because it's just, there's something in my mind that it just goes haywire. Like, I think it's that I always want to give the perfect answer to every question. I hate to misrepresent myself. So I want to give the perfect, truthful response, but to what my favorite of something is, like my favorite band, there is no perfect answer because I have so many different bands and musical artists that I would consider all to be equally as my favorite. So I hate to pick just one because then somebody might think, I only like that specific type of music when really my favorites are extremely varied and I probably could find some common ground with anybody I'm talking to. But yeah, I just have this thing where I really, really hate to misrepresent myself. And I hate for other people to get the wrong impression of me. And I hate to do that to myself by telling them something that I know will lead to them getting an inaccurate picture of who I really am. So a lot of my favorites are lesser known bands or just bands that I don't think a normie woman would appreciate or even know about. So yeah, it's like my brain just overloads and short circuits and I just kind of end up panicking. So she asked me what my favorite band is, and I don't know what to say. I am having an internal struggle about it, I guess you could say. Now, one thing I should mention is this place we're at the whole time had been playing a playlist of romantic soft rock type music, think Elton John, John Mayer, anything kind of like that, right? So I noticed that the song that was currently playing was a song that I actually kind of like. It was I'm Yours by Jason Mraz. Look it up if you don't know it. Most of you probably have heard this song before. It was really popular. And I know it's not the greatest song in the world, but it's okay, it's pretty good. And, I actually like a few other Jason Mraz songs. So in that moment, I kind of thought, well, Jason Mraz is normie friendly music. A normal, well-adjusted woman probably likes Jason Mraz. And so, yeah, his music comes on the radio pretty often. I think that might be a safe enough answer. So when she asked what my favorite band is, even though he's not at all my favorite musical artist, I said Jason Mraz. And that was an astronomical mistake. Well, first off, she asked me to repeat myself, so, I said again, Jason Mraz. And she started laughing. She just busted out laughing. She was laughing way harder than you would expect. If you're listening to this story, however hard you're picturing that this woman is laughing, she's laughing harder than that. She had kind of been laughing a bit the whole time as we're talking, like in a friendly way. So she was kind of a laughy, jovial person, I guess you could say. But it still felt like she was definitely laughing a little bit extra in that moment. Yeah, so she's laughing and then she was like, wait, I must be getting Jason Mraz mixed up with someone else. What is he saying? So I said, well, this is one of his songs. And I kind of gestured, toward the ambiance. She paused for a couple of seconds to listen to the song that was playing, and then she busted out laughing again. Like she busted out laughing. The people at the table next to us actually looked over at her because she was laughing so much. And yeah, so then she says something like, she's like, okay, yeah, that's who I thought it was. And then she just keeps laughing, like while she's talking. So she's laughing and kind of talking through the laughter, and she's like, okay, so your favorite rock band is Jason Mraz. Okay? Like she really, when she said that, it's so brutal. She emphasized, okay, so your favorite rock band is Jason Mraz. And I understand why it's funny because, when someone says rock and roll, you don't think of Jason Mraz. Okay, fine, fair enough. But at this point, the way she's acting is like it's the funniest thing she's ever. And I don't even know if she meant it maliciously, right? She just legitimately thought it was funny, maybe, but it feels like she's kind of mocking me and laughing at me. And it was actually, it was kind of pissing me off a bit because I understand fully, like, it would be pretty lame if somebody's favorite musician was Jason Mraz, but I was only giving that answer because I thought it sounded like a decent answer that she might like. She is the one that looks like a Jason Mraz fan, not me. Not me. I just said that to appease her. But also, he isn't that bad though. Like, Jason Mraz has some good songs. The Remedy is a great song, and I stand by that. So really, I didn't think all her laughing was warranted. And I also thought, it's pretty rude to laugh like that. I mean, it's a 5-minute long speed date. Is it that hard to refrain from laughing for like 5 minutes? So I told her my favorite rock band was Jason Mraz. She's laughing. She's dying laughing. And it got to the point, I actually tried to defend my answer a little bit. I said, he has some good songs. I was like pleading with her. He has some good songs. The Remedy is really good. And she just kept laughing. Like anything I said, she's just laughing and she's like, yeah, totally. Yeah, she's laughing. It's so brutal, because at this point, it's like she's treating me like I'm a little kid saying something stupid, I'm like, he has some good songs. She's just laughing like, yeah, totally, he does, yeah. It just sounded completely insincere, not sarcastic, but she was just agreeing with me in a very insincere way. Like, that gif of Jennifer Lawrence giving the thumbs up and saying, okay? That's exactly the type of energy that this woman had when she was saying, yeah, totally, The Remedy is a really good song. And by the way, it is a good song. I would venture to say The Remedy is a great song. Okay? I'm not like a huge Jason Mraz fan, but The Remedy is really good. And, maybe this woman just hasn't heard it, or hasn't heard it in a while. I'm sure she's heard it before. Anyways, yeah. It feels like she's belittling me, kind of, And it went on for, I don't know how long. It couldn't have been that long, a minute or 2 minutes tops, but she was just laughing her ass off all the way until that ding, 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 the person running the event, she came by clanging her fork against her glass to announce it was time to move on to the next date. And the organizer lady, she even said something like, I know some of you seem to be having a lot of fun. And she kind of gestured toward our table, I know some of you seem to be having a lot of fun, but it's time to rotate. It was so brutal. And I don't know, like, seriously, it was noticeably strange how much this woman was laughing about me liking Jason Mraz. Is that really that funny? I don't know. All I know is that it was about all I could handle, I had 2 dates. both of them went, just as badly as it could, just about as badly as they could. So, you know what? I just stood up. I didn't even say bye to this woman that was laughing at me. I didn't even say bye. I stood up when the time was up and I walked right out the door, got in my car, and I drove home. Because there was no way after that, there was no way I was going to be able to sit through however, 7, 8, however many more of these brutal experiences when the first two speed dates were both awful. I just couldn't do it, man. And yeah, I don't know. I guess let me know in the comments if you like Jason Mraz's music, because again, I actually only know like 3 or 4 of his songs, but the ones I know I like. The songs of his I know I think are pretty good, especially The Remedy. So I don't understand why it was so hilarious. Is Jason Mraz's music that horrible? I don't know. I kind of like it. And again, I don't know all of his music. I only know a few songs, the ones that he played on the radio, but they're pretty good. I don't know. Yeah. So anyways, just wanted to give you this little blast from the past, little story from about 5 years ago, about the time I went to a speed dating event and got brutally laughed out of the building.